Nay, name your price, Dane murmured, gold tie pin winking as he hovered near the rope line. Rain stitched the air into silver threads. Boots struck stone, 21 measured steps, and the plaza breathed in unison with a single rifle and a single will. They call this place silence, but it has a voice. Marble under thunder, flags snapping like commands. If stories like this move you, if honor still means something where money shouts, subscribe now so we keep telling them, and keep this silence loud. Mira's camera whirred softly, lens hood beaded with drizzle. Beyond her, rows of white headstones rose like a chorus, singing without mouths. The rope was a rough velvet vein across the plaza. On one side, the living. On the other, the debt. SSG Elijah Brooks pivoted. Heel, toe, barrel gleamed. He passed the unknowns with the exactitude of a metronome set to reverence. His eyes never left the line. "Sergeant," Dane said, not stepping over but leaning into the gap the way a storm leans into a tree. "A favor, a private ceremony, quiet, discreet. My foundation signs the checks that build the kind of respect this country needs." Cole stood at the far end, a young sentinel with shoulders squared so hard the fabric tried to flee them. He adjusted his gloves once, habit, then froze. Mira slid a half step, framing Brooks and Dane in a single shot, the way gilt and granite fit the same frame. Brooks turned at his post, rifle snapping to the shoulder in a cut of light. The drizzle made the marble smell like a cathedral floor, cold, clean, unforgiving. "Sir," Brooks said, voice level, "maintain a respectful distance." Dane smiled like a man unveiling a painting he already owns. A crisp envelope appeared between two fingers, edges sharp as new teeth. "You guard the priceless," he said. "This is only paper. It spares my family from the crowds. 5 minutes. No one needs to know." From the crowd's fringe came a soft ooh that died quickly under thunder. Mira's breath fogged her viewfinder. Cole's jaw flexed. Boot, stone, silence. Brooks stopped at his cadence mark, turned, and faced the world. "The unknowns are not a product," he said. "Step back." Dane's smile didn't move, but something behind it bared knuckles. "Everything is a product. Even virtue has vendors." Mira glanced to Cole. The young sentinel's eyes flicked to Brooks, then back to the rope like he could will it higher, thicker, sacred enough to keep out everything human. Rifle, shoulder. The wood was slick, but Brooks held it like a vow. Rain found his cover and ran off it, orderly as a cue. "Sir," he said, "your money is irrelevant here." "Come on," Dane said, voice soft, fatherly, like a lie told to a child. "This pays for tents, scholarships, veteran clinics. You'll be doing more good than harm. I'm not disrespecting the dead, I'm honoring them. My way." Brooks's gaze did not waver. "Your way ends at that." Rope. Dane's envelope dipped, then rose, inches from the line, as if it could cross without his hand. The ink smell of new bills curled into the ozone of rain. A flag cracked high above, like a no-nonsense exclamation. "Sergeant," Dane said, "I meet with people who decide your budgets. Think bigger than a rule." Cole's boot flicked a damp drop from a groove in the stone. "Sir, step back," he said, almost a growl. He regretted the growl as soon as it left, but he didn't take it back. Dane turned a fraction, measuring the new voice, measuring the youth. "You're new," he said kindly, which made it worse. This could be the start of a very comfortable tour. Mira felt the words slide like oil across the marble. She hesitated, then kept the camera up. Eyewitness or accomplice? The lens made her both. For a heartbeat, the cemetery hushed itself. The drizzle lightened, like the sky was waiting for an answer. Brooks spoke, not loud, but the plaza made it ring. "Sir," he said, "the unknowns gave all their names for ours. I will not trade them for yours." Dane blinked. The envelope dropped to his side. His eyes found Brooks's name tape, tasted it. "Sergeant Brooks," he said, voice colder, "patriotism can be pragmatic." "Honor can't," Brooks said. Lightning stitched white between cloud banks. Thunder rolled a beat later, the sound of a nation clearing its throat. Brooks resumed the walk. 21 steps, he turned. Back. The grave of the unknowns watched them both with the indifference of eternity. Dane stepped closer, not crossing, but too close to respect, too far to arrest. "Think of the optics," he said. "Think of what I can do for your unit. For you." He let the last word dissolve in the rain. "Sir," Brooks said, "what you can do is observe." Dane's lip curled. "Observe this," he said, and with a flick of his wrist the envelope slid forward, stopped against the velvet. Paper met fiber, money met boundary. Nothing moved. Mira captured the moment, the envelope poised like a threat too polite to say its own name. Cole felt heat climb his neck. Brooks did not blink. "The tomb is guarded, sir," Brooks said. "So is the line you're testing." Dane's breath was cigar and wintergreen. "You're testing mine," Mira heard herself whisper. "Don't." But the word belonged to no one. A child somewhere sneezed, a parent shushed with reverence. Flagpoles creaked, rain stitched the scene again, pulling the image tight. Brooks lowered the rifle to port arms with a precision that made the gesture look like a prayer. His voice entered the record of the day the way rain enters marble, quiet, inevitable. "You cannot buy your way to the unknowns," he said. "You walk, like everyone, quietly." Dane's face, stone warming to anger, flattened. He leaned in, and for a second his gold pin caught a stray sun thread, a false dawn. "Memorize this, Sergeant," he whispered. "I build things. I also unbuild them. Careers, budgets, legends." Brooks's eyes didn't move from the rope. "Legends don't belong to us," he said. "They belong to the dead." Dane exhaled through his nose, the sound of a fuse finding fire. He pocketed the envelope, smoothed his lapel, and almost smiled. The kind of almost that means never. "You think marble is the hardest thing here?" he asked. "It isn't." He stepped back finally, heels wet. He looked to Cole, measured him again, then to Mira's lens, which did not blink. "You'll learn," he said. Not a threat, a schedule. Brooks resumed the watch. The world resumed with him. And then Dane leaned toward the rope one last time, voice low enough for only 3 living people and a nation of dead to hear. "Everyone has a locker, Sergeant," he said. "Make sure yours is empty." Thunder rolled closer. Mira's fingers trembled on the camera. Cole swallowed hard, gloves creaking like old leather secrets. The rain paused, listening, as the billionaire straightened and walked away, leaving the word locker on the marble like a planted charge ticking. "Sir, with respect, who authorized the cameras?" The voice cracked like a rifle drill. Floodlights cut long shadows across the tomb plaza. Midnight rain hissed against marble. The scent of gun oil rode the wind. Arlington had closed to the public hours ago, yet tension stood at attention with the guards. The voice belonged to SSG Elijah Brooks, jaw locked, uniform rain-slick but immaculate. Across from him stood a man in a tailored overcoat, Victor Dane, his silhouette lit gold by the memorial lamps, umbrella idle at his side like arrogance given shape. Mira Ellison adjusted her camera from a respectful distance, her breath fogging against the lens. In the darkness, every sound became sacred. The cadence of boots, the slow thunder of distant storms, the click of the guard's rifle echoing through eternity. "Authorized," Dane said smoothly. "You mean funded, and that would be me." Brooks didn't flinch. "The tomb doesn't take orders from money." Dane smiled like a man petting a snake. "That's what makes it so valuable." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Word is, your unit's funding comes up for review next quarter. Funny how quickly honor can be reallocated." Brooks said nothing, his eyes fixed ahead. Beside him, SPC Ryan Cole stood rigid, his first night rotation as relief commander. He tried to breathe through the iron band of his collar, gloves flexing. "Sir," Brooks said finally, "you're trespassing after hours." "Not trespassing," Dane said, "consulting." He glanced at Mira. "And documenting. Miss Ellison, make sure you get the guard's face in frame this time. The public deserves transparency." Mira hesitated, torn. "Mr. Dane, my access is limited. The guard has protocol." "Protocol," he cut in, "is the language of small men protecting big secrets." Lightning tore across the clouds, illuminating the marble's sheen like glass. The tomb gleamed white, indifferent to the living. Brooks took a deliberate step forward, boots striking stone, measured, unhurried. "You have until the next strike of thunder to clear the plaza." Dane's grin didn't waver. "And if I don't?" Brooks didn't blink. "Then you'll find out what the old guard protects besides marble." The thunder answered on cue, rolling, resonant, righteous. Dane flinched but masked it behind a slow clap. "Fine performance, Sergeant, but I wonder—" His tone softened, snake oil smooth. "How much does silence pay these days? Because I'm hearing whispers about a certain locker and a few unregistered items." Cole stiffened, pulse jumping. Mira lowered her camera, eyes darting between them. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying," Dane said, "that not everyone here is as pure as the marble they polish. Money moves, even in sacred places." The plaza's stillness turned dense, like the air before a bolt strikes. Brooks's rifle shifted, an infinitesimal correction. "You should leave, sir," he said quietly. "You're standing on ground too many better men earned with their blood." Dane's eyes narrowed. "And you're standing on a career I can end with a single call." Cole's restraint snapped an inch. "You can't threaten a sentinel," he said, voice raw, too loud. "Not here." Brooks's command tone sliced through the air. "Cole, hold your post." Cole froze, ashamed. Dane smirked, the kind of smirk that feeds on obedience. He turned, staring up at the American flag unfurling under the floodlights. "Such pageantry," he said. "I respect it. But tell me, when the donors leave, who pays the electricity to keep your flag shining?" Brooks took a slow breath, his every motion trained to precision. "The cost of honor isn't measured in power bills." Dane stepped closer, lowering his umbrella at last. Rain pattered across his expensive shoulders. "No, Sergeant, it's measured in consequences." Lightning struck again, closer this time, splitting the night into a white flash. For one frozen frame, Mira captured it. Brooks facing Dane, rain cascading off his visor, rifle like an exclamation point against the storm. That would be the shot, the one the world would see later, the one that would start the fire. Then, without another word, Dane turned and disappeared into the shadows of the marble arches, footsteps fading into the hiss of rain. Silence reclaimed the plaza. Brooks exhaled, the smallest release of air. "Cole," he said, still staring forward, "maintain the line." "Yes, Sergeant," Cole said. His voice wavered. "Sir, what did he mean about a locker?" Brooks didn't answer. Mira approached slowly. "Sergeant, I should report what happened." He turned to her, not angry, but heavy with a quiet purpose. "No, you'll keep that footage safe. One day, you'll need it." The wind shifted, cold and metallic. Somewhere beyond the cemetery gates, a car engine started. Brooks looked toward the tomb again. "Men like him think marble can crack under money," he said. "They forget. It's built over bones." Mira's camera light blinked red, still recording. She lowered it with trembling hands. "Sergeant, you think he'll actually—" Brooks's voice cut the question clean. "He already has." A flash of blue from a distant vehicle flickered between the trees. Unmarked, official. Cole's gloves squeaked as he clenched his rifle tighter. "Sir?" Brooks's gaze didn't move. "Inspection's coming." Thunder rolled again, closer, like judgment approaching. The sound pressed against the marble walls, echoing off 1,000 names never known. And somewhere, unseen, a door in the barracks opened, the metallic sound of a key turning in the dark. The night had just begun its test. "Open it." The word hung in the air like a commandment. Barracks lights glared against steel lockers, every hinge gleaming, every surface polished to regulation. The inspection officer's white gloves brushed the handle of SPC Ryan Cole's locker, pausing just long enough for tension to become tasteable. SSG Elijah Brooks stood at parade rest beside him, expression unreadable, eyes fixed forward. CW5 Jordan Hale, Raditzer, the old tomb guard turned historian, observed silently from the doorway, his silver watch ticking faintly. Somewhere outside, dawn stretched its gray fingers across Arlington. You could hear rain dripping from eaves, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights, and the distant cadence of a relief guard starting the 21-step walk. Cole's breath trembled. "Sir, with all due respect, this is unnecessary." The officer didn't answer. The latch clicked. The locker door swung open. Stacks of folded uniforms, a photograph of the unknowns pinned inside the door, and on the bottom shelf, an envelope. Damp. Tainted with the faintest smell of cigar smoke and rain. Money. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Brooks didn't move. His gaze never shifted from the locker, but something in his jaw changed, a tightening, a storm forming beneath control. "Whose is this?" the officer demanded. Cole's throat worked, words strangled before they could form. "That's not—" Brooks cut him off. "It's not his." The officer looked up sharply. "You claiming responsibility, Sergeant?" "No," Brooks said evenly. "I'm claiming observation. The man who left that doesn't serve here." Hale's voice, gravel worn smooth by years, filled the space. "Sergeant, you understand how that sounds?" Brooks turned toward him slowly. "Like I'm protecting my sentinel?" "Yes, sir." The officer pulled the envelope free with sterile precision, counting through the bills with gloved fingers. $10,000, he muttered. Crisp, sequential. "Who's your friend, specialist?" Cole shook his head. "I've never—" "Sir, I don't—" But his voice broke halfway, and that was enough for suspicion to move in like smoke. Brooks spoke again, quietly, dangerously controlled. "This came from Victor Dane." The name hit the air like a thrown knife. Hale's silver watch ticked once, twice, before he slipped it into his pocket. The officer frowned. "The defense contractor? You have proof?" Mira Ellison stepped forward from the hallway, her camera slung across her shoulder. "I do," she said. "I filmed him last night. He was here, after hours, tried to buy a private ceremony." The officer's expression shifted between disbelief and calculation. "You're the filmmaker?" "Yes, sir," Mira said. "You can see the footage yourself." Hale's eyes narrowed. "And why didn't you report this immediately?" Mira hesitated. "Because Sergeant Brooks told me to keep it safe until I had to use it." The officer turned to Brooks. "Is that true?" "Yes." "Then you're admitting concealment of potential misconduct." Brooks's voice dropped low. "I'm admitting restraint. I protect this tomb from everything. Storms, disrespect, corruption. Sometimes the enemy wears a suit." The officer stared him down, clipboard creaking in his grip. "You think you can stand against a man like Dane? He funds half the cemetery's upkeep." "Then he's already too close," Brooks said. Cole looked from one to the other, his pulse visible at his throat. "Sir, please, I didn't take anything. You have to believe me." Brooks stepped forward. "I do." "Belief," the officer said, "isn't evidence." The money went into a sealed bag. The air went cold. Hale rubbed his temple, voice soft but sharp. "Sergeant Brooks, what you're doing, it's honorable, but it's dangerous. Men like Dane don't fight fair." Brooks's reply came without hesitation. "Neither does conscience." The officer snapped the folder shut. "Until this is resolved, Specialist Cole is suspended from post. Sergeant Brooks, you'll stand before an inquiry tomorrow morning." Cole's face fell, color draining away. "Sir, my post—" Brooks turned toward him, voice steady. "The tomb stands even when we don't. You hold the line inside yourself now." Cole swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, Sergeant." Hale's watch ticked again. Each click was another second carved off the old world's patience. Mira stepped closer to Brooks as the officer left. "They won't listen, will they?" "No," Brooks said, "but the tomb does." Outside, the sky cracked open, the rain returning harder, angrier. Hale watched him. "You've been at this too long, son. I've seen this before. The system doesn't like men who can't be bought." Brooks looked out the window toward the tomb plaza, where a lone sentinel paced beneath the storm. "Then it'll hate me." Lightning lit his face for an instant, reflecting in his eyes the same marble-white defiance carved on the unknown stone. Mira's hand tightened on the camera strap. "If they come for you, I'll release the footage." Brooks shook his head. "Not yet. Wait until they call me a liar, then show them the truth." Hale exhaled, slow, resigned. "You're going to war again, aren't you?" Brooks's gaze hardened. "Some wars never end, Chief. They just change uniforms." The wind moaned through the barracks vents, carrying the scent of wet stone and old brass. Somewhere distant, the thunder rolled, closer now, echoing off the hills. Cole stood alone by his open locker, staring at the sealed bag on the officer's desk. The money that wasn't his. The ruin that might be. Brooks paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame, his voice low. He planted that cache for a reason. He's not after me anymore." Mira frowned. "Then who?" Brooks looked back once. "He's after the tomb." Outside, the thunder cracked like a rifle shot. The lights flickered. Hale's watch stopped ticking. The investigation had begun, and honor itself was now on trial. "Sergeant Brooks, do you understand what's at stake if you proceed?" Brooks set his gloves on the table, bare fingers raw and unsteady just once before they closed into fists. The small on-site military hearing was convened in a tent overlooking the tomb. Noon light filtered gray through canvas, cutting the assembled officers into pale silhouettes. Outside, flags snapped in a stiff wind, and the hush of tourists was broken only by the click of cameras and the drone of an approaching storm. Brooks stood at attention. Cole sat to his left, uniform jacket folded across his knees, wrists white where he clutched the fabric. Chief Warrant Officer Hale leaned in the back, hands tucked over his watch, eyes shadowed with worry. At the front table, Victor Dane's gold tie pin gleamed like a blade, the billionaire's gaze fixed, predatory, on Brooks. "Sergeant Brooks, this is your last chance to retract your accusation," an official intoned. His voice was smooth, but his eyes flicked to Dane, permission and pressure in a single glance. "What you allege could cost Arlington vital support. For the sake of the unknowns, reconsider." Brooks looked past them, out to the plaza where the tomb stood, white, eternal, indifferent to money and men. His voice was steady. "The unknowns gave their lives so we'd never sell their memory. That's the only support they need." The tent fell silent, every ear straining. Mira Ellison, camera poised, captured the tremor that traveled from Brooks's naked hand to the flag-draped table. Outside, the wind whistled, tugging the canvas as if to eavesdrop. Dane spoke, voice cool as poured glass. "You're an idealist, Sergeant. The world isn't built by ideals, it's built by deals. This institution, like every other, survives on men like me." Brooks's lips barely moved. "Then let it die before it's bought." Cole started to rise, but Brooks's hand reached out, steady, commanding, holding him back with just a look. "Sir," Cole said, voice tight, "I have something—" The presiding officer cut him off. "Specialist Cole, you're here under investigation, not as a witness." Dane leaned in, hands folded, voice pitched low for Brooks alone. "You think this is about you? You're nothing but a uniform. I build legacies. I bury stories deeper than these stones." Brooks didn't blink. "You can't bury what won't die." A gust rattled the flag behind the table, its silk pressed to Brooks's back, whispering along his shoulders, cool and electric. Mira, hands trembling, pressed record. The tension wound tighter, every eye riveted to the scene. The officer's voice snapped through the tension. "Sergeant Brooks, do you have any evidence?" Brooks nodded to Mira, who stepped forward, offering her camera. "Show them." The officer reviewed the footage in silence. Dane on the plaza at midnight, envelope in hand, words clear as accusation. The tent filled with the electric hum of disbelief. Dane rose from his chair, slow and deliberate. "You'll regret this," he whispered. "No one defies me without a price." Brooks peeled his gaze from the billionaire to the flag, then back to the officers. "Then let the world see what honor costs." He turned his bare hand palm up, knuckles still white. "I stand with the unknowns, not for sale, not for threat. If you think a bribe or a budget can buy what we guard, then I've failed." The silence was absolute. Then the press of camera shutters, the scrape of chairs as the officers huddled, whispering, glancing at Dane and then at the footage. Cole's voice broke through the hush, shaking but proud. "Sir, I never took the money. My post is all I've ever wanted." Hale nodded in grim approval, his silver watch ticking again, marking time for the righteous. The tent flapped, the wind surging as sunlight finally pierced the cloud cover, a single shaft falling squarely on the tomb outside. Brooks stepped forward, that light catching the tears on his bare hand, the flag behind him unfurled in full color. Dane's mask slipped, just a moment, exposing something mean, desperate. "You'll lose your post, Sergeant. I'll see to it myself." Brooks, framed in sunlight and flag, raised his chin. "Honor's not a post, it's a promise." The hearing officer looked up from the evidence, voice thin with shock. "This changes everything." For a moment, all was still. Brooks, hand bare, voice iron, stood as the line between power and reverence. A phone buzzed on the table, shrill and urgent. The officer picked up, face draining of color. "There's press outside. They have the video already." He looked at Brooks. "This isn't just a hearing anymore. This is history." Outside, the crowd surged. The rope line strained, and Victor Dane's face twisted just once as the sun broke through. "Post?" The word was soft as dawn. Brooks's voice echoed in the marble hush, boots striking stone with the slow, eternal cadence of the old guard. Dawn mist curled around the tomb steps, the plaza empty but for the three who mattered most. Cole, standing beside Brooks for the first time since his suspension, chest rising and falling with each breath like he might break. Hale waited at the plaza's edge, hands folded over his silver watch. Mira's camera glinted in the new light, silent now, witness instead of weapon. The world beyond Arlington was chaos, press trucks, rumors, power struggling for ground. But here the only sound was the call of the sentinel's footsteps and the distant ring of a bell in the valley below. Brooks stopped at the cadence mark. He turned to face the crowd assembling beyond the gates. Hundreds now, voices hushed, cameras ready, as the truth demanded its witness. Victor Dane was there, face pinched, eyes cold, standing with a coterie of officials. Even at this hour, the billionaire wore his gold tie pin and a stare that promised war. Brooks's hand found the rifle, palm bare, no gloves, just skin and resolve. He raised his voice, not for the men before him, but for every name the marble refused to give back. Before this stone, we are all equal. Here, titles vanish, fortunes vanish, the unknowns do not know you, and you do not own them. A hush swept the crowd. Flags rippled overhead, light and shadow flickering across the white. Brooks's gaze never wavered. Yesterday, a man tried to buy a moment in this sacred place. He believed enough money could bend honor. That silence was just an empty price. He looked straight at Dane, letting the accusation hang in the morning air, every word another nail in the old lies. He continued, voice steady as marble. "Honor is not for sale, not here, not ever. The price was paid by those who never came home. We keep that cost for them. That is why the tomb is guarded, so the world remembers what can never be bought or forgotten." Cole stood taller, shoulders unbowed, as if every word from Brooks built him back up from the inside out. Dane's mouth tightened, but he said nothing. His power meant nothing in this place. Not anymore. Hale's silver watch clicked, marking time as the sun rose over the headstones, painting the plaza gold. Brooks planted his rifle, salute crisp, every motion slow and deliberate, a living promise carved in bone and discipline. The world can take our posts, our pay, our names, but it will never take our honor. The crowd erupted. Applause, not the raucous kind, but the kind that rises from deep, that swells and lingers, respectful, wounded, proud. Brooks looked to Cole, gave him the faintest nod. Cole returned it, tears shining in his eyes as he snapped his own. Salute. A sentinel again. Mira lowered her camera, unable to keep her own hand steady, the moment too real for even the lens to contain. Brooks spoke once more, voice low but carried by the wind. "We guard the unknown because, once, every name was known and loved. That is the only price that matters." The morning sun broke fully over the plaza, lighting the white stone, catching the gold on Brooks's bare hand as he finished his final salute. The camera caught it all, the line held, the silence honored, the lesson unbroken. And as Brooks marched his last 21 steps across the marble, the crowd faded into reverence. The legend had been written, not in headlines or budgets, but in the unyielding quiet of men who refused to sell what the dead had given. So if you believe some things can't be bought, if you think honor is worth guarding, subscribe to hear more stories like this. The silence at Arlington endures, and as long as it does, so will the promise.